Hi everyone, welcome to Infosectrain, and today this is the last day of Fast Track Advanced Penetration Testing Fundamentals. And in the last session, we discussed about how you can do the hacking, what are the different steps of hacking, how you can work with the Metasploit framework, and what are the different modules of Metasploit framework. Now, the last day, we are going to discuss about the web applications, right? So web applications are like they play a crucial part in the security, right? Every website they have their web application and they want to secure it. So the agenda for today is we'll understand what are the web applications and how the internet works, and then we'll exploit injection-based vulnerabilities. Now we'll kickstart this session with the very first question that what is web application? Now when we talk about web application, how you can define guys? How will you tell anyone that this is a web application? How will you define it? So when we are talking about web application, we also call it web app. And it's what? It's a software program which runs on web browsers and it uses web technologies to perform specific tasks or provide services, right? So we have used lots of desktop applications. So web apps, they do not need installation. That's the best thing about web application, that you don't need to install it. You can use it anywhere and from any platform, any browser you can use it, right? And you don't have to install it, right? And 24/7 you can use it, right? So that's why we call that web applications are platform independent as well, right? So if we talk about the advantages of web application, like from the day web applications were started and people started using web applications, so what changes we have seen and what are the advantages? Okay, so if we talk about the advantages of web application, correct? The first advantage is no need to download it, right? So you don't have to install it, you just have to access it through the browser. It has cross-platform compatibility. The updates and maintenance are easy, and its accessibility. So users they can access web application from anywhere within internet connection, right? And that makes it highly accessible and convenient. Next is cost effectiveness. So web apps, they eliminate the need for developing and maintaining separate applications for different platforms. And it reduces the development and maintenance cost, right? So these are some of the advantages of web applications. Now we have seen like social media apps, e-commerce apps, right? For productivity, we use Google Docs, Trello, right? Entertainment, we use Netflix, Spotify. So all these are what? These are web applications, right? Now, when we talk about web application, so there are two things, web application and website, right? So what is the difference between web application and website? Website has static pages, web application is dynamic. What does that mean? Dynamic means if I'm saying a page is dynamic, right? It means that things will keep on changing. Like let's say you take any social media app, let's say Instagram. So Instagram app page, it's not same. Every time you load it, it will show you different posts, right? That's dynamic. It will keep on changing. Website is static, right? That means same information same time. So if there is a blog, right, that blog will stay same, nothing will change, right? That's the meaning of static, right? Now if we talk about the differences between web application and website, first, as I said, website is static and interaction is very limited, right? So it will provide information or content to the visitor. Web applications, they are dynamic and they are interactive. So it allows the users to perform multiple tasks and manipulate the data, right? Then, if we talk about authentication. So when we talk about authentication, it means that I am identifying if the person is same who he or she is claiming to be. If I'm claiming that I'm Ashish, so I have to provide my username and password to the web application. Only then it will allow me to log in, right? So on the basis of authentication, website, it has very limited or no user accounts, right? Visitors of the websites are, they are anonymous, right? On the other hand, when we talk about web applications, so they require user authentication for personalized experiences and access to specific features. So there are some features that admin users can use, but guest users or normal users of the web application cannot use, right? That's a difference on the basis of authentication, right? Then when we talk about website, so user input is limited in website, right? It only focuses on displaying the information. But when we talk about web application, it supports user input, extensive user input. It processes the data and it may involve complex calculations or operations, right? So that's the difference between web application and website, right? Then in terms of user interface, right? So user interaction is focused in web application, where website, it emphasizes on content presentation and navigation only, right? What if we talk about offline access, right? Let's say I'm offline, so will I be able to access website or web application or not? Now, website, it needs internet connection for the access, and web application, it gives you offline capabilities. It allows the users to work with some features even without an internet connection, right? So some of the features are allowed when you are working with web application. So these are some of the differences between web application and website. Now, when we talk about working of web application, right? So how web application works? Now, in general, when we talk about the working of web applications, so web applications, they are built using a combination of programming languages like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and they are run on the servers, right? So when a user interacts with a web application through their browser, the client side code is fetched from the server and executed on the user's device, right? Then the user's input and actions are sent back to the server for processing, and the web app responds accordingly, right? So what do? Let's say you are accessing Facebook. So Facebook, you in your browser, you wrote facebook.com, right? After that, what happened? Your request went to the Facebook server, the Facebook application, and there it gave you the login page. You entered the credentials, your credentials went back to the server checked if the credentials you have entered, those are correct or not. If those credentials are correct, then you are logged into your profile. So in the back end of the web application, there is a database, there is file system, there is a web server, there is an application server, and whatever you can see, that's the front end of the application. Now, when we are talking about web application, the first thing and the main thing that you should know is HTTP and HTTP methods, right? Now, when we are talking about the HTTP methods, right? So first we should know what is HTTP. Yes. So what is HTTP? So HTTP, it stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, right? Now, it is an application protocol for distributed, collaborative, and hypermedia information system. And HTTP is the foundation of data communication in the World Wide Web, right? So, as I'm saying, HTTP is a protocol. What is the meaning of protocol? What do you understand by protocol? Set of rules. Great. So a protocol, it's a special set of rules that endpoints in a communication connection use when they communicate with each other. So protocols, they specify the interactions between the entities who are communicating with each other, right? Now, protocol has three things. First, header, then there is payload, and then there is footer, right? So what is header? What information header has? Now, header part of that protocol, it has some information about the source. That means who is sending the data, the destination, where you have to send the data, the file type, the file size, right? That information is present in the header. Then comes the payload. What is payload? The actual information which you are trying to transmit, right? Which you are trying to send using the protocol. That's called payload. Next is footer. So footer is a control field and it makes sure that the payload data which you're sending, it should be transmitted free of errors, right? So that's why what we have footer to control the errors and check while the data is being transmitted and when the data reaches the target, there are no errors, right? So this is the meaning of protocol. Now we know HTTP is a protocol for communication. But when we talk about the very first version of HTTP, not all websites are using 3. If you capture any request, so you will see maximum HTTP 1.1 or 2. So 2 and 3 both are being used, right? Maximum 2. Right now there is a thing behind it which is quick protocol, which is a UDP based protocol, and that quick protocol only works with HTTP 3. It cannot work with HTTP 2. So that's why we are moving to HTTP 3. Otherwise there was no problem with HTTP 2, right? We could have used it, but yeah, like changes are happening. So what was the very first version? So HTTP, it started from the version 0.9, right? Now, when we talk about the very first version of HTTP, which is 0.9, that version was a plain text version. If you can see this image, in this image, you can see HTTP 0.9. Now, the support is removed, status code, no status codes were used, and major issue was that open new TCP connection per outstanding request, right? What does that mean? So three-way handshake is a way of starting a communication. With three-way handshake, your connection is established, right? So whenever you open a website, a three-way handshake happens, and that three-way handshake is used to establish connection and start communication, right? So every time what was happening when we were using HTTP 0.9, I opened a website, three-way handshake happened, connection established, website opened. Then connection is closed, right? Every time the connection was closed. Now here you can see that connection nature is written, right? Connection nature terminated immediately after response, right? So once the response arrives, your connection is closed. It's terminated. Then what will happen? You will have the website. Now you have to click on something else. Now let's say you clicked on any option on the web application, right? Then again three-way handshake will be done, and then you will get the output of that option, right? So that was the major problem. Second thing, the method. So when we talk about the method supported on HTTP 0.9, it was only get method, right? That means you can only fetch the resource. You have to send a get request, get let's say hello.abc file. So that hello.abc file will be there. And one more thing was there, which was the type of the files, right? So it's written response type, hypertext only. That means only HTML data you are able to send, no images, no pictures, no videos, nothing, no audio. Only HTML based data is transferred, right? That was the first version of HTTP, right? After that, next version came and it was HTTP 1.0. Now, in 1.0, headers not officially required, so you don't need headers. Then response type changed. So it's not limited to hypertext only. So headers, they have the ability to transmit files other than plain text HTML files like scripts, style sheets, media you were able to send. And there was a header, or there is a header, which is with the name content type. So that content type header gave the ability to transmit files, right? Other than HTML. Then connection nature was same, terminated immediately after response, and that's why it was the problem of HTTP 1.0, right? Then support, it's used by proxies, wget. So wget is a command in Linux to download anything. So wget also uses HTTP 1.0 and some browsers, right? So Internet Explorer browsers use it. Then status codes were introduced. So these there are total 16 status codes that it was supporting, right? Then after like HTTP 0.9 1.0, there was a lot of problem. That main problem was to open a new TCP connection every request you are sending, right? Every time three-way handshake was happening. So what came? HTTP 1.1 came. Now, HTTP 1.1 was having some features, right? The first feature was HTTP. So in HTTP, like older versions of HTTP, what we were doing, we were sending a request, waiting for the reply. Then the reply came. Then send another request, wait for the reply. Send another request, wait for the reply. So that was something which was time consuming. Now in this HTTP pipelining, and the image you can see that in the left hand side there is no pipelining. That means client sent a request, reply came, then next request sent, then reply came, then next request sent, then reply came. But in HTTP pipelining, client sent all the requests in the same time and replies came later, right? So it is a technique in which multiple HTTP requests are sent on a single TCP connection without waiting for corresponding responses, right? Then next feature of HTTP 1.1 was HTTP persistent connection. Now persistent connection, why? Because there was a header keep alive, right? So this keep alive is the idea of using single TCP connection to receive and send multiple HTTP requests and responses, so that you don't have to open a new connection for every single request and response pair, right? So whenever you are sending a request, with your request there will be a header included, keep alive, so that will keep the connection alive. Clear? Then next thing, next feature was compression and decompression, right? So this is called content encoding. There is a header, content encoding. When we talk about content encoding, it is a capability which is built into web servers, web clients to improve the speed and the bandwidth utilization. right? So what you are doing, whatever data, whatever requests, whatever things you are sending, right? That's getting compressed, right? Using, like, generally there are two compression scheme, gzip or deflate, right? So these are the most common compression schemes. So your data is compressed and then decompressed at the target's end or the server's end, right? Now how it works, let's say I want a file from server, so I sent a request to the server, I want this file abc.txt, right? In that request, I will also write that what encoding I accept. So there will be a header used accept encoding, and there with accept encoding, I will write gzip deflate, that I support these two things. So if you want to send any reply, that abc.txt file, if you will compress it, so compress it using either gzip or deflate, right? So if the server supports the same compression scheme, so server will add content encoding field in the HTTP response, right? So there will be a header content encoding used in the reply, and their content encoding will be written either gzip or deflate, right? So that's how the compression works. Then next good thing about uh, this version of HTTP is there is content negotiation. Now, content negotiation does what? It gives you different versions of a document at the same URI, right? So what I can do is, let's say I have a PC having very old specification, and my PC cannot uh, open images of having extension PNG, right? So what will I do? I want the website is same. I want the image from that website, but it does not support PNG images. Like uh, Internet Explorer 4, right? Version 4 of Internet Explorer, it was not able to accept this PNG format, right? So what happens is your client will do the negotiation with the server, right? That I cannot support PNG format, give me the image in some different format, either JPG or any other format, right? But don't give it to me in PNG format because my browser, like, I cannot support it, I cannot open it, right? So that's called content negotiation. Now these were the good things about 1.1, right? But there were some performance issues. The very first performance issue is head of line blocking, right? When we talk about head of line blocking is what? It is a network performance issue, right? So when a bunch of packets are blocked by the first packet in line, that's head of line blocking. In simple terms, what that is. Let's say, let me paste an image so that you guys can understand easily. Now here what happens. In the input side, if you can see, there are four types of data that are being sent, right? Now in the first one, there is one, two, three, four, and fourth one you're not able to send due to some reasons, due to some problems. The packet number 4 was not sent, right? So that's blocked, right? Now until unless your packet number 4 is not sent, your 1 2 3 will also not be sent, right? Even if the destination for 1 2 3 is different from 4, even then they will get stuck, they will stay stuck behind 4, right? That is the meaning of head of line blocking. Then next problem was repetition of information. Now, repetition of information means that I am saying I support this kind of encoding. Then again, that multiple headers, same repeated information is being sent, right? Same user agent information you are writing, except content information you are writing. So the headers are repeated, and headers are repeating the same information that Mozilla Firefox Linux 5.0, right? Same information is sent by the server as well, that this is the information about the host. So that's a repetition of information, and it makes usage of bandwidth high, right? Data, like information inside that is increasing, headers are increasing, so that's why it's heavy, it becomes heavy. So if we don't use them, even website or web application will work fine. So these were the two problems in HTTP 1.1. Now what we have to do, we have to find out something which helps us, right? So what helped us? The one with the name HTTP 2, right? Now, what HTTP 2 did, the first thing is it was using binary instead of textual. Yes. So, binary protocols, they are more efficient and they are more compact on the wire, and they are less error prone, right? If you compare it with textual protocols, so HTTP 1.0 or 1.1, they have a number of problems, right? Like things like white space handling, capitalization, line endings, blank lines, many things were there, right? So if you are using binary, then in binary everything is 0 1 0 1 0 1. If it is a white space, then also it's 0 1 0 1. If it's end of the line, 0 1 0 1. So everything is binary, so less errors were there, right? Then there was request and response multiplexing. When we talk about the request and response multiplexing, what is the meaning of multiplexing, guys? That's multicasting. Multiplexing. So what we are doing, see, we have seen, like if someone is from the electronics background, there was a tool with the name multiplexer. What it was used to do, current was coming from three different wires, and it used to send that current, combine all the current and send it through one single wire. That's what we are doing, right? So if a server is sending response, three different responses, so through a single connection, single TCP connection, we are sending it to the client. We don't have to open multiple TCP connections, right? So over a single connection, we are sending it. That is the meaning of request and response multiplexing, right? And for that, HTTP 2 uses server push. Server push means that it is the ability of the server to send multiple responses for a single client request, right? So you are, when the server is able to send multiple responses and using multiplexing, you are sending it through a single connection, right? So these were the good things about HTTP2. Now, due to quick protocol, what happened? See, we are trying now, like Microsoft, Google, they are using a protocol with the name Quick, right? QUIC, right? If you want to read about it, you can see the read the definition, the documentation. You can just write RFC 9000 and you can read about Quick. So Quick is something which is on UDP based multiplexing protocol, and Quick supports HTTP 3, right? So due to that, Quick UDP became faster, like it was fast, but it became more faster and more reliable, right? Now you can say that packet won't drop in UDP. There are very less chances that packet will drop. Now you should know about HTTP methods. What are methods? HTTP defines a set of request methods that indicate the action to be performed for a resource. Now, these methods are important for communication between clients and servers, right? That how you will respond, what uh, thing or what set of actions you have to perform, right? So methods tell that. Now, the very first method that we have is get, right? We have heard about get method a lot. What get method does? It helps you retrieving data from the server, right? Now, in get method, all the parameters of yours, whatever parameters you are using, all of them are included in the URL, right? And what if I'm repeating the same get request multiple times? Will it have any effect? No, right? So it will have the same effect as you're sending a single request. Perfect. Then next is put. What is put? There is put and there is post, right? When we talk about put, put will update a resource on the server and it will create it if it does not exist, right? And if we talk about post, what post does? Post will submit data to be processed to a specified resource. So what is the difference? Post is also uploading some data, and push is also sorry, put is also uploading some data. So put and post, aren't they similar? And if they are different, how they are different? Now, when I'm sending the same data, right? I'm sending the same request using post. So there will be different outcomes, right? Multiple things. Let's say I'm sending an image. So multiple images will be uploaded. But if we are talking about put, right? If you are sending, uploading an image, right? Let's say there is an online portal where you have to upload your passport image, right? So if you click on browse, upload it, right? So your image of passport is uploaded, right? Then if you again click on browse and upload, so will there be two images of your passport uploaded? No, right? There will be only one image. That's put. So whenever you are sending data through put, it will have the same effect even if you are repeating it as the single request, right? But when you are sending it from post, so post is non-idempotent, right? So multiple things will be uploaded, like on Facebook or Instagram or any social media, you post the things. Why we say we post things? That if you are posting the same picture, so it will be uploaded one time, two time, three times. Every time you are clicking on post and it will be uploaded, right? So that's the difference between put and post. Next is delete. What is delete? Delete any specified resource on the server, right? Then next is patch. What is patch? Now, patch means that you are applying partial modifications to a resource which is saved in your server, right? If you are making changes, let's say you sent a message, there was an error, you edited it, right? You can edit your messages now, right? So when you are editing it, that's patch, right? And it is used when you want to apply partial updates to a resource. And the request body of this patch, it contains a set of instructions how to modify the resource, right? Then next is head. So head allows you to retrieve the headers of a resource without body, right? And it is similar to get request, but it will not return you the actual data in the response body. And it is useful just for checking headers like content length, content type before fetching the full resource, right? Next is options. What is options? So it describes the communication options for the target resource, right? And it is used to find out the communication options available, and it will give you the information about the supported methods, the supported headers, and everything, right? That's options. Next is trace. What is trace? When we talk about trace, it echoes the received request, right? So developers, when they develop something, they use trace option just for debugging, right? So it's kind of loop back. Next is connect. When we talk about connect, so it is used to establish a network connection to a server over HTTPS, and it is used when client wants to establish a tunnel to a server, right? For secure connection. That's connect, right? So these are the methods of HTTP. Now, when we talk about HTTP, how HTTP works in the internet, right? So in internet, you have different packets and protocols. So HTTP request is sent, right? There is a switch and router. So you entered www. So it used either satellite or DSL or your mobile connection, and then that request went to your internet service provider. Then from internet service provider, it went to the internet where there are protocols working, right? Like TCP, IP, FTP, HTTP. So HTTP request is sent to the server and then to the target where you want to send it, right? So lots of protocols, lots of networking protocols, and lots of internet protocols are used to connect you to the internet and fetch the resources, right? Now, the next thing, when you talk about web application, pen testing the web application, the main thing you should know is OWASP top 10. Now, what is OWASP? So, if we talk about OWASP, guys, OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Projects, right? And it is a non-profitable organization who gives a list of top 10 vulnerabilities, right? Now, top 10 vulnerabilities that are being used by attackers a lot, right? And those are exploited by the attackers a lot, right? That's your OWASP top 10. Now, how it started. In 2003, people in OWASP, what they did, they developed a software. When they developed the software, they made it public. Now, attackers from all over the world, hackers, attackers from all over the world, they started attacking it, right? When they started attacking it, so what happened? People in OWASP, they started categorizing those attacks, right? And then they came up with a list of top 10 attacks that are being used all over the world. Now, from that day, every 3 years, they release a list of attacks which are used by attackers or the hackers or the websites which are vulnerable to those attacks. Right? Now, the latest OWASP, the list of OWASP top 10 came in 2021. Right? In that list, there are 10 vulnerabilities, same. Perfect. So, 10 vulnerabilities are there. First is broken access control, then cryptographic failures, and on third there are injections, fourth insecure design, then security misconfigurations, then vulnerable and outdated components, right? And then identification and authentication flaws, software and data integrity failures, then security logging and monitoring flaws, server side request forgery in the end, right? So these are the OWASP top 10 for latest vulnerabilities. Now, what we'll do, we'll exploit a vulnerability, we'll do a practical and we'll exploit injection based vulnerabilities, right? So, this is the website and we'll be using this. Now, which vulnerability we are exploiting? We are exploiting a vulnerability with the name SQL injection. Now, when we talk about SQL, SQL stands for structured query language, right? Now, structured query language means it is used for database management system. Yes. So it keeps your data saved inside database and in form of tables, right? So tables are there. When we talk about injection based vulnerability means that when your request is traveling and in between that request, you are injecting your queries so that you get the desired output, whatever you were looking for. So what we do, whenever we have to do SQL injection, the very first thing is that you have to check a condition, right? Condition is that there should be variable equals to number situation present. Now, what is variable equals to number situation? Like ID equals to 1, right? Category equals to 1, right? Anything. So cat is a variable, ID is a variable, 1 is a number, right? So that's variable equals to number situation. Now the website that we have choose, if you can check the URL, in the URL it is showing show profile equals to 4. Yes. So whatever condition we were talking about, is that condition being met? Yes. So variable equals to number situation is correct here. Now, what I have done, I have broken SQL injection into 5 steps, right? Step 1 is breaking developers code, right? Now, when we talk about breaking developers code, let's go back to our website and let's see the URL. Now, if I copy the URL, in this URL, the entity is 4. It's written show profile equals to 4. Do you think this 4 is traveling as it is in the backend also? No, right? So what developers do, they write the code like this. Input type and let's say number, right? So this 4 is traveling inside these double quotes. Yes, there will be double quotes. This 4 in the backend is traveling inside these double quotes. Now, when this 4 is traveling inside double quotes, then what if I add a single quote here? After 4, I add a single quote. What will happen? Yes, so there will be an error generated. Now, what I will do, I will try it in the website which we are using. Let's add a single quote, presenter. Is there an error? Do we have an error? Yes. Read the error, what the error says. You have an error in your SQL syntax. Check the manual that corresponds to your MySQL server version for the right syntax to use near 4 and before 4, after 4. Can you see double quotes and a single quote? So the information that I gave you that 4 was traveling inside double quotes was correct. Why there was error? Because when double quotes was started, after double quotes, it was looking for a double quote to end it, right? Whenever you use double quotes, right? So you start double quote, then end, write something inside, and then end it with the double quote. But when it was executed, double quotes 4, and then it encountered a single quote first, right? So that's why the error was generated. Now we wanted to generate the error intentionally, right? Why we wanted to intentionally generate the error? Because I wanted to find out the backend server, and it told me that the backend server is MySQL server. Now, next thing that we have to do is we have successfully broken the developer's code, right? After this, we have to move to step 2. Now, step 2 says uh, balancing the query, right? Now, balancing the query means, what is the meaning of balancing the query? That means without removing that single quote, you have to remove the error. You have to add something which will remove the error, but you don't have to remove that single quote, right? So, what we have something known as commenting vectors, right? What commenting vectors are? In many programming languages, you have seen we write comments, right? Let's say I'm writing a comment. So I'll write a pound sign and then I'll write that this code error, right? So this line is commented out. That means while I will run the program, I will execute the program, this line will not get executed. It's just for information, right? In many languages, C, C++, Python, JavaScript, and every language, you have seen different comments, right? And the symbols that you use for creating those comments are known as commenting vectors. Yes. Now, same like that, in databases also you have commenting vectors. Like if you have MySQL database, right? The commenting vector is hash, right? Or pound sign, right? If it is MS SQL, right? Then the commenting vector is double hyphen, right? If it is an Oracle database, then the commenting vector is also double hyphen, right? So we will use these commenting vectors for two things. First thing, these commenting vectors will remove the error. Second thing, these commenting vectors will create a place for me where I can inject my queries, right? So for that, what I have to do is the default commenting vector for my SQL server is hash, right? So if I put a hash after a single quote and press enter, my error should be removed, but it is not removed. That means This commenting vector, the person who developed this website has disabled the use of default commenting vectors. So there are some custom commenting vectors as well. What are those custom commenting vectors? Hyphen, hyphen, space, hyphen, 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 plus, hyphen, 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 slash, hyphen, right? So these are some types of custom commenting vectors. So we can try using these custom commenting vectors instead of this hash, right? Now if I write hyphen, hyphen, space, hyphen, right? I got my original page back. The error is removed, right? So this means that this commenting vector was not disabled in developing of this website. Now, next thing what we have to do, we have created a place for ourselves. What we have done, we have created a place for ourselves where we can inject the queries. Where is the place? After the single quote and before the commenting vector, there is a place created where I can inject anything, whatever I want. Yes. So what we'll do, now we will inject. Inject what? So we have to move to step 3. Now step 3 says find number of columns, right? So database has tables, table has columns, right? Rows, and it looks like this, right? The rows, the horizontal ones are rows, the vertical ones are columns. Yes. Now the thing is that we have to find out the number of columns. And for finding out number of columns in SQL, you have a query, right? Which goes by the name order by, right? Now what order by query does? It arranges the things in ascending or descending order, right? What it does? It arranges the things in ascending or descending order, right? Now how can we find out the number of columns from this? So let's assume that there is a kid. Now kid has some, let's say some pencils, right? Now you want to find out how many pencils he has, but he don't want to share with you, right? So you ask him that let's do one thing, let's play a game, right? That how many pencils you have. So according to the length of the pencil, arrange your 5 pencils in ascending order. The kid arranged 5 pencils. So that means minimum 5 he has, right? Then next, what you did, you asked that, okay, let's do one thing. Now arrange your 10 pencils in ascending order. So kid will say, no, I don't have 10 pencils. Then you will say, okay, arrange your 8 pencils. Kid arranged the 8 pencils. That these are my 8 pencils. I've arranged them in ascending order, right? Now kid has does not have 10 but has 8. Now you are left with 9, if he has 9 or not. So you'll ask him that arrange your 9 pencils in ascending order. Kid will say, no, I don't have 9. So that means kid has 8. Same like that, the hit and trial method will play here. For playing that, we'll use order by query, and here I will write order by, let's say 50, right? When I wrote 50, it says unknown column 50 in order clause. That means the number of columns are less than 50 or more than 50. Because if it cannot find out the 50th column, it cannot find out more than that. So it will be less than 50, right? So let's try 25, right? So it says unknown column 25 in order clause, right? Then next is, let's say, 15. It says unknown column 15 in order clause, right? Now let's say I tried 10, right? Unknown column 10 in order clause, right? Then let's say 5. That says unknown column 5 in order clause, right? Now let's try 3. I got my original page back. Does that mean it has 3 columns? It has 3, but we have to be sure how many maximum columns are there. So we will try with 4 as well. 4 is also giving me the same page. That means it has 4 columns because 5 was giving us the error. Now we have found that how many columns are there, right? Next step says find vulnerable columns. Now, which columns will you call vulnerable and why a column is vulnerable? What makes that column fit in the category of vulnerable and others are not vulnerable? We call the columns, those columns vulnerable which have missing values, right? So whenever any column has any missing values or garbage values present, then that column is vulnerable. Now, how we find out the vulnerable columns? Like this: union select all and the number of columns that you have found, right? Now, in place of these columns, you can write like this: 111, 222, 333, 444, right? Any column value, right? In first column, in all the places you are trying to paste 111. In second column, in all the places you are trying to paste 222. In third column you are trying to paste 333, and fourth column you are trying to paste 444. So any value which gets reflected in your output, right, that column is vulnerable, right? So if I copy this and paste it in our page, right, the work of order by is done. Now union select all, right? Am I getting anything? Let me make it lowercase. Am I, am I getting anything? Are there any changes in the page? No. Now, what do you think? Why there are no changes? Now, in URL started executing from here www.website-name/sql level 2 php, and then it says show profile equals to 4. So in this website, it is showing me the contents of profile number 4, right? That's why when our query, union select all query got executed, it was not having any place to paste its output, right? So what we have to do, we have to disable this variable show profile equals to 4, right? How can we do that? I can write it as -4 because there is no index, as minus or negative indexes are not there in the database. So that's why I put it -4, and here in the output I can see that it shows 111, 222, and 333. That means column number 1, column number 2, and column number 3 are vulnerable. Perfect. Now, once we have found the columns which are vulnerable, right? So the last step says exploit vulnerable columns. Now, exploiting the vulnerable columns means retrieving the data out of those columns, right? So there are some pre-built functions, right, that are inside the database. So those functions you can call in place of vulnerable columns. So you can write user, the version, right, and database. So the thing is, in place of vulnerable columns, the columns we have found, what I will do in place of one, in place of first column, I will write, let's say user, right? In place of two, I will write database. And in place of three, I'm writing version. Why? Because only these three columns are vulnerable, right? When I press enter, right, I can see the username is 𝐸�XAML at localhost, right? Database name is my underscore 𝐸XAML and the version is 8.0.30, right? So using SQL injection, we have exploited the vulnerability and we have retrieved the data from. Now, this whole process, whatever we have done, this can be automated using tools, right? So what tool we can use? Now there is a tool which goes by the name SQL map, right? Now let's say I have a website. Uh, let's open this one, right? Now in this website, I just have to find out variable equals to number situation. Now you won't find out variable equals to number situation directly. Like you open the website and in the URL it is, right? You have to go through all the options and all the places of it. Let's say I click on categories and in categories there is posters. I clicked on posters, right? So when I clicked on posters, I can see it's cat equals to 1, right? Now, when it is cat equals to 1, that means variable equals to number. So I just have to copy that URL, right? And with SQL map, you have to write hyphen u for specifying the URL. You specified the URL and hyphen hyphen dbs hyphen hyphen batch, right? So hyphen hyphen dbs means database search. And whenever you run this tool, it asks you lots of questions that do you want to do dictionary based attack, do you want to save the output, do you want to add suffixes, right? So every time you have to write yes or no, right? So for that, what we have used hyphen hyphen batch. So according to the situation, it will automatically fill yes or no. Rather than you filling it, the tool will automatically fill it, right? So right now I'm trying to find out what is the name of the database. When I press enter, right, it started and it gave me the database name, right? The name of the database is 𝐀𝐝, right? So now I know the name of the database, 𝐀𝐝. I will specify the name of the database, 𝐀𝐝, and from that database, I will dump every data. So I have written hyphen hyphen dump hyphen all. So it will just dump every single data from that database in front of me on my screen, right? Now let's see how it does. So if you can see this, do you want to use common password suffixes? No, it automatically failed. Why? Because we have used the option hyphen hyphen batch, right? So these questions I haven't answered. The tool automatically answered those questions and automatically picked up the things which were appropriate for the situation. This whole thing is in front of me. Whatever was there, whatever is saved inside, everything is in front of you, right? the table, the price, the products of that website, everything. So that is how you do SQL injection using SQL map.